Hey everyone, Margarita here. I'm going to film this video today on how my mother has Munchausen by proxy and the different forms of it that she has. There is also many criminal activities that are tied in with the situation. And I'm also going to talk about how I believe this initially began as traditional Munchausen syndrome, where one injures themselves for attention before it turned into Munchausen by proxy. I have tried to film this video 7 or 8 times already, and I keep having to restart the video or throw away the one that I did. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to wing it. It comes out better that way because these are my actual true life events. And even though I tried to write it down and use a bullet point list, it came out even more choppy and distorted with the facts all over the place when I tried to do it that way. So I'm still just going to wing the videos. They seem to come out a lot better with me just telling it how it is, especially because I have 5 brain injuries and because these are my actual life events. So I'm going to start with the different forms of it that she has, and then I'll go further into detail on some of the important situations pertaining to all of it as a whole, which have turned into very serious crimes. With all of this, I brought in the mental health professional myself almost 6 years ago. Her name is Charmaine. That's who I'm referring to in the different videos as Charmaine. And she is the only one who's been involved long term. I did try to bring in several others. However, they weren't involved long enough to speak to me to get a full understanding of what's been going on before my mother inserts herself and creates more chaos and is able to manipulate the mental health professional to work against me. So that is what she does with everybody. She does this with large agencies, people, every person she's ever met. It's been going on my entire life. And that's what she tried to do with the other mental health professionals. So Charmaine is the only one involved. I had to fire everybody else. And I even made it very clear in the beginning that this is why they're brought in. And then they started to operate on her behalf. And she is able to gain everybody's trust just by stating she's my mother. She sounds believable when she talks. And the crazy part is that you would never be the fact that she dug to find these people's phone number and then managed to reach them, that's proof in itself that she's the one with the disorder. So I've been being portrayed to have this mental disorder my entire life when she's actually the one with the ongoing mental disorder and ongoing crimes, and she's causing all of it. So yes, there are professional eyes on the situation. However, this is so extravagant. It's so long term. There's so many criminal actions involved in all of this. It's not that easy for arrests to just be made because where we are today in 2025, there's quite a few people who will be facing serious charges who have participated in this to an extreme degree and have caused some very serious destruction in my life. And it's all at the hands of these lies and delusions that she tells all these people and agencies, and they just believe her. So it is not that easy for something this long-term, something this extravagant. These are RICO crimes. There's so many crimes involved. And at the root is the stolen trust fund that was supposed to be given to me almost 2 decades ago. And that is also part of the reason for her behavior and the criminal actions. So I'm going to try to squeeze this into one video. However, that may not be possible. If there is a second video, this will be part 1. So I just want to make sure everybody's watching this in order. It's going to make a lot more sense to watch part 1 prior to part 2. And if there's not a part 2, you just won't see a part 2. However, since I've tried to do this so many times, I do believe there will be a part 2. And part of the problem I'm having is I'll end up forgetting some of the important information in part 1 and then I'll just come back and do it in part 2. Some of it are important facts regarding the situations. And there's just so much that it's impossible for me to remember every single thing, winging it in one video. So I'm trying to tell it in chronological order. However, it might be slightly out of order, but it's going to be pretty close to it. Okay, so I'm going to start with the different forms of Munchausen by proxy. And I do believe that it shifted into Munchausen by proxy around the time I was age 4 to 5 years old. Prior to that, it was just Munchausen syndrome. So the forms of Munchausen by proxy are the fact that my mother poisons batches of food. She also causes mental, physical, and emotional pain and suffering. And that is also done by poisoning batches of food. And she also has portrayed me to have a mental disorder and or a drug problem that's been going on for decades. And that is also because you don't have to just have somebody physically sick. You're making somebody appear mentally or emotionally sick for attention, because she's the one gaining attention by telling people all this stuff about me that's never been real. So that is another form of it. And another issue is that she withholds medical treatment, again, to create physical pain and suffering. So now she can use the poison batches of food to cause physical suffering. And then she could also use that to withhold medical treatment as well, especially because she was a hospital employee for 45 years. So that also plays a role. There's a lot of people with Munchausen by proxy who worked in the medical system. That is a huge red flag. So withholding medical treatment would also cause all of that, cause physical, mental, and emotional pain and suffering, especially for the patient. If the provider is believing the deranged lunatic who's lying, and then that person is left physically suffering in pain or having problems or not getting treatment, that's going to create physical, mental, and emotional pain and suffering. That has happened with myself, my youngest child, and my dad. So I'll get more into that in a little bit. Also, she will not just withhold medical treatment, but if something else happens outside of her causing the situation to happen, she will also withhold medical treatment and or insert herself in situations so she can try to withhold medical treatment. She usually uses other staff to do it, and it's her doing that does it. But it doesn't have to be her causing it. That, it can be her that caused it, or it can be something that happened outside of the scope of her having anything to do with it, and she just inserts herself in the situation. So that is another issue. She does insert herself into things, all different types of situations. It may not have anything to do with medical, but she uses large systems and agencies and other individuals to create chaos and problems. And I guess at the root of that, it would portray her to look like this great person. So like in my situation, she has used child protective services. She's used adult protective services with my dad, different police departments, different situations. But she'll, again, she may not cause the situation to happen, but she'll find out this happened or that happened. She'll insert herself in the situation, call to the top of whoever's in charge, get them to accept her delusional phone calls, and she repeats all these delusions to them and calls them regularly for these people to operate against me or against whoever it is on her behalf and cause problems. So that is another issue, because she's using systems, large agencies and different systems to harass, cause problems. And then by doing that, it makes her look like a really good person, because she'll say, oh, this happened over here. And, she'll call to the top of whatever situation is going on, getting those people to believe it. It's causing all these additional problems. Most of the time it's me, so it's causing all these problems in my life. And then she flaps her jaw on the phone to these hundreds of people she tells her delusions to. And, oh, did you hear what she did? You know, blah, 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 blah. That's why I have custody over kids, blah, 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 blah. Portrayed herself to have custody of my older 2 kids for 20 years. That was never real. Those are delusions. So part of that is the portraying of me to look like I have this mental disorder and this drug problem, which, you know, in everybody's eyes would be like why she has custody of my kids. None of that's ever been real. Those are all lies and delusions. And then if she inserts herself into a situation, gets the agency or that person who she's calling to further harass me, and her hands are clean. She's far from the situation. She's nowhere in the vicinity. No contact, no relationship with this woman. Whoever she's calling just believes that everything she's saying is truthful just by her saying she's my mother. And that's still going on in the current day. That's never stopped. It's been going on from the time I was a small child. So, yes, she uses large agencies, different systems and people, and then the harassment and some of the results or the chaos and the conflict going on, which sometimes others may see. And then she spins her false story to whoever's around when the fallout happens. So let's say her delusional phone call placing happened last week. Well, the fallout goes on with those around me, you know, the following week or a month later or whenever. And we could be around a totally different set of people. Or, you know, I wouldn't be around her, but let's just say something else is going on. And then my kids are causing a problem or somebody else is causing a problem. And it's because of that initial delusional phone call placing to whatever agency from the week prior or the month prior. And then it makes her look like she's just this great person, or maybe let's just say we are in the same building or at the same event, even though there's no contact, no relationship, we're not speaking to each other. Then she just shows up because one of my kids is causing problems. It's because of her delusion repeating over and over and over, even though the seed was planted a month prior. Then here she is like, oh no, you come with me. Like, no. Okay, so she's caused all these problems every step of the way. This has been going on nonstop for decades. So let's see. So yeah, some of what I said, those are all tied together, especially with the physical, mental, and emotional pain and suffering. Those are tied together with the poison food. A lot of these situations are kind of intertwined, and then it has become criminal because of the trust fund being left for me. She never had any intention of handing it over to me. The trust fund was left for me in the late 1980s, and from day one, she never had any intention of turning it over to me. So that is what is behind all of that. She then tried to carry out what those stipulations were when we met with the attorney when it was left for me. She then she farmed the situation to look that way. She made it appear that way. None of this was actually true. She started farming it from the time the trust was left for me, and then made it look like I was a certain way just by farming the delusions and the false narrative before I was ever even in kindergarten. Or I might have been in kindergarten around the time this all started, to that degree, and made it look that way. Now, part of the problem is I caught her poisoning batches of food when I was about 4 years old, maybe 5. I wasn't older than 5. But I then confronted her, not knowing that that was dangerous to do. I always knew there was something wrong with her, and I knew she poisoned food. And then I confronted her when I was by myself about it. So, okay. So, yeah, when it comes to poisoning the batches of food, I did confront her on it, and that's where she started telling people I've always been known to lie. You can't believe anything I say. I make things up, and that's still going on in the current day. Once that happened, she knew I was threatening to tell on her, and she had to get ahead of the game. And I did not understand psychology at that point in my life. Who would, as a 4 or 5-year-old kid? I don't know any 4 or 5-year-old kid who understands psychology. So I had no clue that what I did was very dangerous. And here she was making up all these lies and delusions about me. And it was because she had to make sure if I ever told anybody about her poisoning food, that they would never believe me. So I do believe this is why the farming of the delusions about me with all of my teachers. Every year I was in school from kindergarten to the time I left high school. I do believe that's where that all stemmed from, in case I found a teacher that I trusted where I could tell that she was doing this to, because I didn't have any living grandparents. I had no siblings. I had no one to turn to. I didn't have a proper support system. And her family members, who she was closer with, because there is hundreds of family members I don't have contact with 99% of them, but she has contact with probably over 50% of them. She had full control over the narrative about me with every single person around her. So that way, if I ever tried to tell anybody, especially family or anybody, they would already believe this false narrative about me. So that is what was behind that being grown and farmed from a very young age, me confronting her on the poison food, and then the dead stamp was set on it once I was left the trust fund. Okay, so the poison food, yeah, I confronted her. No, I never actually tried to tell any teachers, and I didn't have any family close enough to where I felt that they were going to believe me. And the way she would pull me aside, beat the shit out of me, scream in my face about how nobody's ever going to believe me. She did that from that point forward. And I was so young that I guess I just believed her. So I never attempted to try to tell anybody. Although, no, I'll leave that out. Okay, so, yeah. All right, so going back to the Munchausen syndrome, how I believe this all started as traditional Munchausen syndrome. We're going to back this up to where she was about 12 to 13 years old when her father passed away. That's around the age when her father passed away. From what I've heard, I do believe they were a little closer, and her dad was much older. I believe he was in his early 60s, and she was very small. Or maybe I think he was in his 50s when she was born. So, not that this is an excuse, and she does have siblings. As far as I know, these siblings don't exhibit any Munchausen by proxy traits. However, the sister that she is close to, and that sister's daughter, because that child is 7 years older than me, they have helped harass me and have helped spin the false narrative about me and spread it amongst people for the past 6 to 8 years. The false narrative between them was already controlled by my mother from the time I was a small child. And then about 6 to 8 years ago, she, I don't know, she amplified whatever the false narrative was about 6 to 8 years ago. It was amplified. I don't know how exactly or what she's telling them, but whatever it is not true. And all of them help spread these delusions about me. They've always believed I was this mental disorder, drug addict, loser, liar, whatever she's been saying from the time I was a small child, and then carried it on, grew it over time, grew it as I got older. I cut ties. She grew it with them even further. They believe everything she's been telling them about me all of these decades. So there is a problem with them participating in these lies, delusions, slander, gossip, defamation of character. They're involved in it. They're two of the biggest flying monkeys. Their names are Yolanda and Rita. So they have participated long-term in all of this. And at some point I did try to tell her sister, at the beginning of my injury, I did try to tell her what she had been doing, what's going on. She didn't want to believe anything I was saying, because whatever it was, my mother has told her. She doesn't believe anything I'm saying. She still just wholeheartedly believes her sister. These are all 100% delusions. I even told her that Charmaine wanted to speak with her at one point. You can tell by what her response was to me that she just believes I really am this mental disorder drug addict, and that's why Charmaine's involved. I was telling her this because I need her to speak to her sister, because the sister my mother is the one with the mental disorder, and that's why Charmaine was brought in. No other reason. That, and I was fighting for my life. So you could tell by whatever her reaction towards me. that's what she believed. And then after my dad's injury, when I was chased from his hospital room a couple years ago by her, you could tell that something significant had been said about me to her, which was not true. And then on the day of the injury, on the day of the surgery, the entire thing ended in a fight where I then had to go make a police report because of whatever the delusions that are said about me caused her to react this way toward me, caused the both of them to act this way toward me. It doesn't matter. It's all a false narrative. They're not even willing to hear that this is a false narrative because it's been going on for so long, so many decades, that they just believe everything every step of the way, no questions asked. So, yeah, so the sister, yes, there's an issue with her believing all these lies and delusions long term. The brothers live in California, so I'm not sure of their thought process on this, but I do know that whatever's coming out of my mother's mouth, it is being said to them as well. So I'm not sure if they actually believe all of this. They probably do. I don't know. Most people do believe everything she's been saying about me to be real, and none of it's real. So I'm not sure their thought process behind any of this. And from what I can tell in the amounts of time that I've spent with all these individuals, I don't believe they have any Munchausen traits. Okay, so going forward, my parents started dating when my mom was a teenager. My dad was 4 years older than her. They were married by the time my mother was 19. My dad was 23. And then my mother's mother, so my maternal grandmother, then passed away around the time my mom was 20. So my parents were already married. They were already living together. And I do believe that her at least the father portion passing away young played a role in this, and then probably the mother passing away at a younger age down the line, not far down the line, also probably exacerbated the situation. Hold on one second. Okay, I keep having to pause my video and it's totally disrupting me. But okay, so where I'm going to go back to after her parents were deceased. So I guess before my mother's mother, my maternal grandmother, before she was deceased, my mother got in a car accident, a pretty significant car accident. My parents were already married, and this was probably about 6 months after they were married. And my mother was stuck underneath the steering wheel down by the pedals, and the jaws of life had to come get her out. I believe she was stuck for a couple hours, but she had some pretty severe injuries. She had a rod put in her leg, and I know my dad had to take time off work and take care of her and carry her up and down the stairs. So I think that played a role in the Munchausen syndrome forming, because here she got all this attention from this accident, from this injury, and it filled the void where she was missing from her father being passed away. So I do believe that this is where it all started. And then I'm not sure exactly how long my dad took off work when all of that happened, but several years later, so all right, let's go with when I was born, because this other incident is shortly after that. So then when I was born, which she was 27 at that point, so about 7 years later, she had a C-section. Mind you, they did not want kids. She did not want kids. She has the C-section, and she does not bond with the baby. There's no bond, no relationship from day one. I do not know if postpartum depression was something that was diagnosed back then or not, but I would say that that's definitely what she had, because there was never any relationship, never any bond. She was not attempting to do this. And then when she was in front of others, she had to fake like she liked me, like she really loved me or was caring for me or whatever. It only went on for a short period of time. before it turned into she no longer acted that way toward me. I don't know about others' perception or a view of others in public or around other people, but that fake love went away around the time I was 5 years old after I confronted her about poisoning the batches of food. So either way you look at it, it was all faked. None of that was ever real. I remember clear as day because of all of the brain injuries. My memories started coming back after the first brain injury, after giving birth while suffering from carbon monoxide poisoning in 2016. So my memories from that time period are very, very clear, down to what I was wearing a lot of these times. So at that time, she had to be taken care of. I was a premature baby and I was in an incubator for a period of time before coming home from the hospital. And my dad was the one visiting me when all of that happened. So she had to be taken care of at home. She came home first. So my dad was the one taking care of her then. And then once I was brought home, there was just no bond. She was mad that my dad was giving his attention to me instead of her. And then for me, I had the C-section, blah, blah, blah. She was mad about all of that, that he was putting his attention on me. So that's where the jealousy and envy initially stemmed from regarding the relationship between my dad and I, and where her jealousy and envy had stemmed from. It started at birth. It continued on throughout my entire life. It's still going on today. That's also part of the reason that I've been banned from my dad on all these lies and delusions at the care facility for the past year and a half. So it stemmed from day one, and she really wanted to just continue to be taken care of all of that time. So the C-section happened, and then when I was about 4 years old or so, my dad used to drive my mom to work, and she used to work at the Dearborn Muirhead building, which was a part of Oakwood Hospital. So people who are viewing this that don't know what Oakwood Hospital is, that's what Beaumont Hospital used to be. Prior to that system being Beaumont, it was Oakwood. And now it's Corewell Health. So prior to Corewell Health, it was Beaumont. Prior to Beaumont, it was Oakwood. So she worked, she was initially at the main hospital and then went and worked at the Muirhead building. That's where she was at this particular evening. I had been there before while she was working, and I do remember the layout of the building and the stairway. This particular night, we were waiting out front for her in the vehicle, waiting for her to get off work. This is long before cell phones. And she was taking forever. So my dad went inside to find her on the ground at the bottom of the stairs, screaming and yelling. She's screaming and crying like a banshee, and it's fake. I can tell you right now that I remember this incident clear as day. It was over the top fake. So I don't know if she actually hurt herself. I don't believe if she did actually injure anything. She exacerbated what exactly was going on. It wasn't, I don't, she may have not actually injured anything. I'm not sure. I don't have the full details. I don't remember the full details, but from what I remember, she supposedly fell down the entire flight of stairs and he found her at the bottom. I don't believe she fell down the entire flight of stairs. She either made herself fall down the last several stairs, or she just placed herself on the ground at the bottom and she didn't fall down any stairs. And she managed to pull this off all for attention. My dad, I guess, took her to the hospital, I'm thinking, especially because it would have been like a work injury type thing. So I also believe that this plays a role in how she was able to keep her job for 45 years and get away with some of the things she was doing. I do believe that that incident played a role. So again, I don't think she actually fell down the entire flight of stairs. I'm 100% sure she didn't fall down the entire flight of stairs. She may have not fallen down any stairs at all, but I do remember the whine and the scream and the cry, and it was fake. So she got all this attention off of that situation as well. And I think what it was is that she was sick of injuring herself too. So she figured she can continue this on, get more attention by shifting it over to my dad and myself. And then eventually when I had kids, those kids. So I do believe that's what happened. And then also she was pregnant somewhere around that same time frame. She was pregnant with another child. She also miscarried that child. I don't know if her falling down the steps caused the miscarriage, if she was even pregnant at that time. I don't even know if it's the same exact time frame, but it's very close. It's very close to that time period. So I do know the miscarriage happened. And again, she did not want any kids. She didn't want any more kids. And she definitely didn't want anyone teaming up with me, especially because I had confronted her about the poison food. She couldn't have me having somebody to team up with to go against her. So I'm not sure if that fall had anything to do with this miscarriage, or if she directly caused something within herself to miscarry at that time frame, or if it was completely unrelated. Either way you look at it, she did not want me to have a sibling to have somebody to team up with against her. So that was around the time the Munchausen syndrome then shifted to us. So then the poison batches of food she would do when there would be triggers that would cause her to do this. So it would be jealousy and envy triggers that would cause her to do it. And that is still the current case today. Any type of jealousy or envy, or if somebody tries to tell on her for her behavior, that'll cause her to do it. Or if she's just mad, let's say she's mad at a coworker. Let's say it doesn't have anything to do with me or my dad. If she's having a fight with a coworker, or she doesn't like somebody that she works with, she would then bring like community treats and put it in a batch of treats and share it with all the employees. And she would take it to work, and it doesn't matter that it's just meant for the one person. She would bring it and everybody would eat it. I know this for several reasons, because she also sent a batch of treats. They were for me. However, I was actually at work. So this is when I was about 22. I actually never ate them, and the people I worked with ate them. And all of those people got very sick. So similar situations, she will take the poison batch of food or the treats or whatever it is. She does like to put it in things that are sweet. So her excuse for not eating it is, oh, I'm on a diet. I do know that there was a couple of dinners where on my dad's side of the family, where my mother also brought the poison food, which makes perfect sense because she also did not like any of them. Didn't matter who was eating it. Somebody else got blamed for it. My dad's sister got blamed for it. And it did not fully become known. I knew who did it all along. I've known she's done this all along, all these decades. It didn't become known until my dad's injury about 2.5 years ago. This whole situation became known to me because the wrong person was blamed for the situation, and she knew she didn't do it. But I did. I knew who did it. And then while my grandma was passing in the hospital that my mother worked at, she was repeatedly poisoning her batches of food. I believe it was daily, every day that she was there bringing her food. And she was doing it the 2 years prior to my grandmother landing in the hospital. So my paternal grandmother. She did this the 2 years prior. She was bringing her food every Sunday, and I would be there with her. She was poisoning her food. And then my grandma had very extreme symptoms. And I talk about this in a different video. I released it about 6 months ago. And on YouTube, it is labeled, My Munchausen Mother Contributed to My Grandmother's Death. So you can view that video separately. That talks a little bit more about that situation, how it went on for a couple years and how it went on until my grandmother was no longer here, and then how my grandmother caught her in the end. And then my mother was portraying her to look like she had this mental disorder and that nobody should believe her, much like she was doing to me already, because at that time I was 15. So you can go and view that video. It is, I'm pretty sure it was about 6 months ago. that I released it. So when you look on the different playlists of my YouTube series, it is labeled under my Munchausen mother and her ongoing crimes. And if you're watching this on TikTok, all of my videos are better formatted and you can view the different playlists and the different situations that all tie together. You can view it all a lot better on the YouTube channel. So that is at Against All Odds True Story. So that is where you want to view that. The link to that is on one of my 2 TikTok pages. So when you go to the main screen, it is toward the top. The other one, it doesn't have it, but it is at Against All Odds True Story. So anything pertaining to my situation, anything that sounds interesting, that's where you're going to find the better information, the better format of everything. And there's more videos on YouTube. So far today, where we are in 2025, I have more videos on YouTube than I do TikTok. So that's where you can view everything. Now, when it comes to the poisoning of the batches of food, this was ongoing. It never stopped. There remained the jealousy and envy against me because of me and my dad having a close relationship, and then her just never taking on the role of a parent, never bonding with the baby, just being extremely jealous from day one. It did not help that I was very cute, or that I grew up to be very pretty. That also played a role. Any jealousy or envy incident, she was poisoning another batch of food. Like I said, this was not just limited to me and my family. She was doing this to other individuals, extended family, coworkers, any situation where there was somebody she did not like. She would do this and bring it didn't matter that many people were eating it, she would still do it. So this has been ongoing for a very long time. It's still ongoing today. And during my injury is when I nearly was unalived with the apple pie that she used her brother to get it into my house. He was visiting from California. This was at the end of 2019. And she had made that pie. Initially, I believed it was her sister who made it. And her sister does not poison food. I know that. Regardless of the fact that she does harass and cause these problems and spread the false narrative, her sister actually makes good food. So there is a video already up on that situation. I believe it was right before or right after the video that I just mentioned on my paternal grandmother. It is labeled Poisoned Apple Pies and Lies, I believe. So those videos are pretty important if you want to go watch those. It talks about the entire situation. But these poisoned batches of food have been ongoing the entire time, my entire life. She would mostly do it at dinner. And she would also, I also mentioned that she's into some serious brainwashing tactics. When she'd be poisoning the batches of food for dinner, she would also be repeating delusions about me to my dad at the dinner table with me sitting there, talking about me right in front of me, telling him lies and delusions that were not real. And she would be scraping her fork on her plate, kind of like the movie Get Out. Very similar to that, but she was scraping her dinner plate while repeating the lies and delusions after she'd poisoned the batch of dinner. And she was doing this very frequently. I believe it was every night, or at least for a period of time, it was every night. And eventually, around the time I was 10 years old, my dad then had I don't know if it was a heart attack, but it was definitely a heart situation where he ended up in the hospital. I don't recall what the outcome was, but I also don't recall anything ever coming of it beyond that one night. Also at that same time frame, I began experiencing quite a bit of heartburn, which was not actually heartburn. It was the poison coming up, my body rejecting the poison. It was not able to digest it. It would be coming back up as if it was heartburn. And I was not allowed to be sick or have symptoms. She never wanted me to be sick. Even if I was, she would withhold medical treatment and force me to go to school suffering. There was one time where I was very sick outside of the poison food as well, because this would just go on at night. By the time I'd wake up, it would be gone. Outside of that, I was sick with the flu or something, around that time. I would just, one time they called her and said she has to go home. She can't stay here, because I was very sick. So it didn't matter. I was never allowed to catch a cold or catch the flu or be sick. She would force me to go to school like that every single time, again, to create physical, mental, and emotional pain and suffering. With that poison batch of food, those poison batches of food, it continued on. It never stopped. She always remained doing it. And once I cut all ties at 18, that all stopped. All of my heartburn no longer continued on. Now, I was pregnant with my oldest child while I was still living there. I was 18 when I bought my first house, but I finished out the majority of my pregnancy. I was still living there, and then I bought my first house before the baby was born. And she was poisoning me all during my entire pregnancy. Now that I know what I know today, I know that that's what was going on, because now I'm very educated on this subject and how the human body works. I have knowledge that the rest of the population needs and does not have. It's all very simple. The entire system is a scam and is lying to everybody. But because of all of these situations, I was forced to acquire this knowledge. So, when I was pregnant, I was suffering from extreme heartburn. It was not heartburn. And then I had other issues, but now that I know how those issues can occur, I'm aware that it was the poison food that was actually causing those issues. As soon as I removed myself from under their roof and from eating any food that she was making, I didn't have a problem with this any further. Had my second child, no problem. I was under my own roof at that time. And there was a handful, like a couple year period, where she had access to my food in my mid 20s. And during that time frame, this heartburn suddenly reappeared. And down the line after that time period, once I got into my next home and my next home, again, she was never allowed in any of my homes from day one. My dad tried to keep it like we were this actual real family. I'm not sure why he didn't realize at any point along the way that none of this is normal. Her behavior is not neurotypical. That is why there's no relationship between us. I'm still not sure. I'll never get the answers because of the frame of mind that he's in and his physical state where he is today. But that did happen down the line, where she was using my dad to get these poison batches of food into my homes down the line, because then she no longer had access to my food. And I caught on very early with all of this, and I would remove it and throw it away. And then once I became near death from my injuries in 2018, if I ingested any small amount of it, I became violently ill, even closer to death. I barely survived that apple pie incident. So from that point forward, also during that time, my memories were fully coming back 100% during 2018, 2019. The majority of my memories came back during those couple years. And she was sending my dad with the poison food to my current home, this home that I'm in right now, sending him over here with it. And it was because she was jealous and envious of the type of home that I have. So if you see, that is the house behind me. I don't know. Yeah. So that's pretty much what my house looks like. But all these houses look the same. Very jealous and envious from the time I had purchased this home. That's what she was doing, but using him to get it into my home. So around that time, I was catching on which things were. I knew which ones they were. Anything that he was bringing in, he was coming. Every time he came, he had another poison batch of food. It became every time he was here.